Welcome into College Football Smothered and Covered on this beautiful Friday. My name's Barrett Salee. I appreciate you guys checking out the show. We apologize there was no show on Thursday. I was playing golf in the 680 The Fan Classic. We did not win, but did have my first eagle. It was a natural eagle. Yes, it was a best ball scramble, but we used all three of my shots on the par 5 17th. I was very excited. Chipped in from just off the green, nearly drove the green in two. It was one of my proudest moments as a golfer, and I don't have many of those, but still pretty happy about that. We're going to do a lot in this show. We're going to talk about the ESPN FPI. We're going to talk about the bowl schedule as well. I have some thoughts on that. But before we do that, a reminder, this show brought to you by BetOnline, your number one source for all things NBA Finals, Stanley Cup Finals. You can get live odds, stats, all that stuff over at BetOnline. And when the shows are over, when the game is over, head on over to their online casino. Maybe get some blackjack or some poker, maybe one of the 150 different slot options over there on BetOnline. Hey, you know what? If you use the promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, that's BELIEVE, BLEAV, they'll match 50% of your first deposit. That's right, 50% of your first deposit. Go over to BetOnline. The game starts here. Okay, the ESPN FPI is out. And I'm not necessarily one that thinks too much into this. You know, there are a whole lot of different metrics that go into all of these different rating systems. And I do think FPI is better than S&P Plus. I do think FPI gets it wrong a lot. And we'll talk about where they get it wrong right here. It is not at number one. And you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the top 25 here. But not surprised Georgia's number one. Carson Beck is one of the top two quarterbacks in the country. Kirby Smart won 2 national championships, might have been the best team in the country last season. The landscape just didn't evolve in a way where Georgia could make the college football playoff. But no surprise that Georgia is number one. Oregon at number 2. Okay, let's get into this Oregon thing. And my colleague over at SiriusXM, Jeff Schwartz, will probably hate me for this. There is no way that Oregon should be ranked number 2 in the FPI. I love Dan Lanning. I think he's one of the best coaches in the country. I love the fact that they've built that program from the inside out. That's exactly what you need to do, not only to be effective in the Big Ten, but also on the national level. However, if you're going to be one of the top 2 teams in the country, you have to have an elite quarterback. And I am not a Dylan Gabriel guy. I think he's good enough to get Oregon to the college football playoff because that's a much different conversation. But winning it, I don't know about that. To me, Dylan Gabriel is a stat monster. And there's nothing wrong with stat monsters. It'll help him move to the next level. It'll help Oregon win a lot of games. But when you have Ohio State on the schedule, when you're in the Big Ten, and you have a quarterback who's really good but not great, I don't think you can be considered one of the best teams in the country. It's definitely not one of the best 2 teams in the country. So I think it's clear that FPI has a different opinion of Dylan Gabriel than I do. And others out there like him. I like him. I think he's a good quarterback, but he's not elite. And so it's different now for Dan Lanning in Oregon. I think right now, the skill positions, they're still pretty solid. Maybe not what they were last year, but still pretty solid. Is Dylan Gabriel better than Bo Nix? The answer is no. So number 2 in the country, that is way, way aggressive for Oregon. And Jeff Schwartz, who's my partner on SiriusXM on Sunday mornings this spring, I apologize. Actually, I don't. We've talked about this before. All right, moving on. Alabama at number 5. For those who are not watching, Georgia, Oregon, Texas, Ohio State, and then Alabama. Okay. I've said this pretty consistently about the Crimson Tide and Kalen DeBoer. If you have a definitive opinion on Alabama this year, you are lying. There is absolutely no way anybody can have a definitive opinion on what Alabama is going to be. Why? because there's no blueprint for this. We're talking about DeBoer replacing the best coach of all time. And sure, we could go back to the Bear Bryant era, but and use that as a blueprint of what to do or what not to do. But this is a much different era. A much different era. And so are we sure Jalen Milroe will be able to be a star in Kalen DeBoer's offense? No. Are we sure Kalen DeBoer can manage the rigors of an SEC schedule? The answer is we don't know. Will the defense be able to carry the offense if what Kalen DeBoer is working on doesn't work? We don't know. So Alabama at number 5. Look, I'm a big proponent of when we're talking about teams, right? When we're talking about rankings, we can't just say, oh, well, this team's overrated or that team's overrated, because somebody's got to be there, right? You can't say Team X is overrated and then not have an answer as to who should be there. But I'm not doing that here. I think Notre Dame should be above them. I think Notre Dame's really good. If you want to make an argument that Clemson should be above them or Ole Miss, definitely Ole Miss. Ole Miss is down here at number 16. If you want to make an argument that Ole Miss should be 5 instead of 16, I think you're right. And that's where I think people who watch the games and computers differ. Now, I'm a big proponent of computers in determining playoff caliber teams, but this is before the season. This is a completely different conversation. So I think those two teams are interchangeable. Why Ole Miss at number 16? I don't get that. Dynamic quarterback in Jackson Dart. Walker leads an incredible wide receiving core. I think the running back core is in great shape, even without Quinshon Judkins, with Bentley and Diggs and that crew. If we're going to factor in strength of schedule, which I'm not sure if FPI does, but if it does, Ole Miss, the schedule's not that tough, which works both ways. One, the rankings might not like it, but two, if you're talking about end result, the result is beneficial. So those two things I think should be switched. Ole Miss and Alabama. I mean, Alabama down at 60, but Ole Miss should be above Alabama in the FPI. However, this one is the one that really got me. I had to do a triple check. Penn State's number 6? The Penn State team that has Drew Aller at quarterback is number 6 in the FPI? Why? Why? Did I miss the part in the offseason where Drew Aller became a dynamic quarterback and could complete passes 15 yards downfield? Or at least have James Franklin even attempt, call plays. And I remember back last year when James Franklin got all pissed because somebody asked him, hey, why don't you call plays deep downfield or something like that? And James got all pissy, which he should have. It was a bad question. I don't remember exactly how it was phrased. But I mean, it was clear that they didn't trust him all that much, or he didn't trust himself. Either way, the offense was limited. So Penn State at number 6, I'd love to know why. I'd love to know why. They can run the football, but you can't be a national championship caliber team if you're one-dimensional. And Penn State is one-dimensional. Until proven otherwise, I am not going to believe in Drew Aller. Just not going to do it. Absolutely not going to do it. And this FPI model, by putting Penn State at number 6, not only seems to think that they can make the playoff, but at 6, you're kind of talking about them being somewhat capable of winning the playoff. That is bananas to me. How on earth can that case be made? I don't know. But again, these FPI, this S&P Plus, they're all around to get us talking. They're not always accurate. I do think FPI is more accurate than S&P Plus, but it is remarkable to me that Penn State was up there. I'd love to talk to the War Games computer inside Bristol, Connecticut, and find out what it's talking about, what it's thinking. Should we play a game? People who've seen War Games know what that's about. Okay, moving on. Notre Dame, 7th. Okay, that's fine with me. Oklahoma at number 8. So, my colleague at SiriusXM, Chris Plank, is not going to like me for this, but Oklahoma's a little bit of a mystery to me. I don't even have them in my preseason top 25. And the reason is I don't know what we're going to get from Jackson Arnold. Like, to me, Jackson Arnold, Connor Wegman, they're kind of the same guy, right? You really hope that he can be good. You think he can live up to the expectations. You saw a little bit of a taste of him in the bowl game, and it wasn't bad. It was pretty good. But then again, what's he going to do full time during a transition to the SEC? Now, the defense, I think the defense for Oklahoma is going to be pretty good. Got a ton of dudes back. Identity's been established. Toughness has been established with Brent Venables now entering his 3rd season. But that's pretty aggressive too. Top 15 team for Oklahoma. I need to see it before I believe it. To me, Oklahoma right now is what Texas A&M was going into the SEC. Now, they had Johnny Manziel, and I'm not saying Jackson Arnold's saying the exact opposite. Jackson Arnold's not going to be Johnny Manziel because we've seen a taste. He's pretty good, but a lot of hype, a lot of buzz, really no reason why. Really no reason why. We know the buzz for Texas. They made the playoff last year, almost won the semifinal. But I just don't know about that whole Oklahoma thing. Like I said, I need to see it before I believe it. Moving on down, Tennessee and Missouri, 9 and 10. I mean, interchangeable with those two. If you guys have watched this show, you know how I feel about Tennessee and Missouri. I think Tennessee is going to be better. If you want to say Missouri is going to be better with Brady Cook, I'm all ears. You can make a very good argument. I can make a very good argument about Tennessee. We can argue with each other, but there's no right or wrong answer here in early June, and that's what makes college football great. We talked about Texas A&M, they're 14th, but Clemson at 15 is interesting to me. I have gone back and forth on Clemson over and over and over and over this offseason. I can't figure out what I think Clemson will be. Because I think they'll be okay at running back. Maffa's good, and I think they'll have more of a focus on that. I think they kind of lost. The offensive line had some issues last year too, so they kind of didn't get their identity, and Will Shipley was banged up, whatever. But I think defensively they'll be okay. They'll be able to hang in games. It is on protecting Cade Klubnik and on Cade Klubnik stretching the field. To me, he's kind of like Drew Aller, right? A lot of hype, a lot of buzz. People think he's talented. He could be good, but he hasn't really been good. He hasn't been able to stretch the field, but there are weapons around him. And okay, yeah, why aren't you better? Right? Why aren't you better? And then there was the whole Garrett Riley thing last year, and everyone thought it was going to be the TCU offense and all this other stuff, and it just didn't happen. So I've gone back and forth on Clemson, and today, June 7th, I'm buying Clemson more than I should. And maybe it's because I feel like Dabo Swinney's got a chip on his shoulder. In fact, I know that Dabo Swinney's got a chip on his shoulder. He hates all this. And if you go back and look earlier this week, I had a reckless rant on Dabo Swinney and the unfair criticism that gets levied upon him by lazy members of the media and I think fans who just kind of want to pile on. And there are several reasons why this happens. Go back and watch and listen to that reckless rant. You'll hear why. And there are a lot of people who got mad about this, including people in our industry. Got a lot of text messages, but I'm still right. But Clemson, to me, I think is at a crossroads. A 9-win season last year was the worst season they had in more than a decade. 12 straight double-digit win seasons comes to an end. That can be used for motivation, especially for players who were a part of it that are embarrassed by it. So right now I'm buying Clemson. Now, the biggest thing to me is will they take the reins off of Cade Klubnik? Because I watched him. I know what he's capable of doing. I've seen it. But for whatever reason, it seemed like they didn't trust him last year. Now, another offseason as a starting quarterback within an offense that he has more comfort level in. We'll see what happens. I'm buying Clemson. I'm surprised they're down that low because I do think that computers will like them too. That's another part of this. I think for Clemson, I like them, but with all the stuff that's factored into the FPI and these other computer systems, I kind of figured the computers would like them better than maybe they do. All right, last one I want to talk about before you hit the Bulls. USC at 18. USC at 18. Why? If a Lincoln Riley factor is involved, it should be the other way. Lincoln Riley is not the guy he's cracked up to be. Lincoln Riley is as stubborn as a mule and will not focus on defense, will not teach fundamentals in practice. And until proven otherwise, I'm going to stay on that stance because it's not just a USC thing. It's an Oklahoma thing. Now, Oklahoma had generational quarterbacks and Lincoln Riley was a big part of the reason why. But why do they lose when they get to the playoff? Fundamentals. Lincoln doesn't teach them. So you're going to put them at 18 in the Big Ten? Are you kidding me? ESPN FPI needs to mix in some water. 18. Now, Auburn at 19 is funny too. But 18 for USC. I don't get that. I lied. There's going to be one more because Auburn at 19 is funny too. Are we suddenly believing in Peyton Thorne? Yes. Apparently. Did computer systems watch Auburn last year where Peyton Thorne at times got the yips like Chuck Knobloch? The yips like what happened with Tyler Matzik that almost cost him his career? Again, computers don't watch games. And again, I like computers when we're figuring out who's worthy at the end of the season. Beginning of the season, sometimes I throw my hands up like I have no freaking clue what you guys are talking about. The ones and zeros, man. Sometimes Peyton Thorne, the ones and zeros were about how many passes he completed in quarters. I don't know about that, man. Auburn should not be ranked. I don't know if Auburn's even going to get a vote in the preseason AP Top 25. And ESPN's FPI has them in the top 20. Bowl season. Yes, bowl season. Start times and kickoff times and dates were announced on Thursday. I would have put this in my show on Thursday, but like I said, I was too busy playing the best golf of my life at the 680 The Fan Classic. But bowl season came out, and if you're watching, you can see the graphic. I'll go through some of the ones that I like. Of course, New Year's Day is reserved for the playoff spots, as is New Year's Eve, and then all that stuff. But a few things stood out to me. One, Army-Navy is between two bowl games. This is interesting to me. I don't know if I'm the only nerd who loves that Army-Navy is solo, but we're going to have two bowl games between Army-Navy. We're going to have the Celebration Bowl at noon, the HBCU National Championship, and the Camellia Bowl that evening. At first, I was like, I don't know, man, that's weird. But looking back, we have FCS playoffs at noon that day normally. We have the Heisman Trophy ceremony that day, and that will lead into the Camellia Bowl now. So the more I think about it, the more I like it. It's a celebration of everything that makes college football great, right? HBCU lesser teams playing at noon, leading into the biggest rivalry in the country in Army-Navy, leading into the presentation for the best and most prominent individual award in college football, and I'd say maybe even sports in America, leading into a bowl game that is not going to have high-profile teams, but teams that deserve to be seen. The Celebration Bowl kicks it off, but it's a celebration of college football. I love that. The next thing that stood out to me is the Hawaii Bowl on Christmas Eve. Let's go. The Hawaii Bowl should always be on Christmas Eve. Always. Always and forever. For those of you who have kids, you know what I'm talking about. Putting together Christmas presents after the kids go to bed and watching two average college football teams play in Hawaii is a tradition unlike any other. It's been back and forth from Christmas Eve, a few times. For the parents with kids, it is the perfect way to sip whiskey, put together Christmas presents that probably aren't put together correctly, and then basically stay up all night waiting for the kids to wake up to make sure they don't come downstairs too early. I remember one time Santa, air quote Santa, brought my daughter, who was 2 at the time, a toy kitchen, a play kitchen. It was 47 pages front and back of instructions, and the drill died in the middle of it. We were renovating our house. We had just moved in because we bought it as a foreclosure. We still own the other one, and the batteries were at the other one. And we were, so we couldn't drive. We had the drill because all the tools are at the old house too. And we were spinning the drill by hand. It was awful. The only thing that saved us was not only that the Hawaii Bowl was on, but that they replayed it right after. Thank you very much, ESPN. Last thing, Bahamas Bowl in January, like that too, just because everyone's kind of all juiced up about bowl games, and we get to go watch the Bahamas Bowl in windy Nassau, and it'll be good. That really has nothing to do with anything. But the big reason I'm telling you this, there is no such thing as too many bowl games. If you like college football, if you want to reward players, you love bowl games. They're not participation trophies. They're celebrations of the sport. They're engineered games that are designed to make things attractive. They're designed to be exciting, interesting, fun games. If you don't want to watch on a rando Tuesday night, don't watch. A lot of people do. TV ratings are through the roof. Gambling is a big part of this as well. And if you are for player welfare, if you think players should be paid, this is just another avenue for them to get paid. Through per diem, through gifts, and they get a vacation. What's not to like? There's no such thing as too many bowl games. You'll say, well, Bear, you're anti-playoff expansion. Two different conversations. Nobody thinks a mid-tier MAC team is worthy of a national championship. Hell, nobody thinks the best MAC team is worthy of a national championship. The playoff should be about who's worthy. Bowl games should be about fun. So there's no such thing as too many bowl games. If you think that, you're insane. That will do it for this edition of College Football Smothered and Covered. Appreciate you guys checking out the show. We will have a weekend feast for you this weekend. We'll play the best of the best. If you missed my Dabo Reckless rant, you can catch it on the YouTube channel, but it also will be included in the weekend feast. Have a great weekend, everybody. Unless breaking news changes everything, we will talk to you on Monday.